Hello, and welcome to the Crate and Crowbar. I think this is episode 223, and this is Thursday the 25th of... Hang on, where are we? January. It's just me, because Chris is ill, and Tom F is jet-lagged, and Tom S is definitely not here right now, so, hello. Also, I'm supposed to be, we send the magazine to print, yesterday, and today was kind of the recuperation day, but I am also reviewing Subnautica, so I am going to try a thing where I record this podcast while also playing Subnautica to try and A, maximize my time, but also B, to try out a new thing in terms of incorporating a game and playing a game into talking about a game. And also it makes it a bit easier for me, given that I don't have anyone to bounce ideas off. So you'll have hopefully the game audio. I'm going to try and not trigger any story related stuff because obviously there's spoilers within that for people who are planning on playing. So what I'm going to do is carry on pottering and stocking up on resources and building some things and offering a bit of thought and hopefully insight into what that means. We had a question as well about Subnautica, and I think that it actually helps both set the scene and also acts as a kind of content warning, because I think a lot of people, even if they're not phobic of the sea or deep sea related things, I know that it can make some people uncomfortable or trigger kind of feelings of claustrophobia or worry. So I'll lead in with that question. It comes from Jonathan, and I have a bone to pick with Pip about Subnautica. A grudge. I listened to many a pod where Pip described her fun with fishes, and despite suffering from mild thalassophobia, I thought I'd give it a go. But the fun with fishes is a ruse! The game starts you in sunny tropical shallows with pretty fish and the occasional irritating bitey fish. But from there out, it's all terrifying dark depths filled with malevolent bear moths. The game spawns the blueprints for the useful survival gear out of the safe zone, and each trip for me was a white knuckle dash full of nope. The updates only seemed to ramp up the horror when they introduced a I nearly carped my pants. Excellent pun. While I do want to play the final story now it's complete, the thought of repeating those unarmed mad dashes out into infested waters is giving me pause. That aside, I really did enjoy playing the game. I wouldn't have pushed myself to go deeper if I hadn't found the fiction engaging and mechanics really fun. It was terrifying because the sea is so well realised. It's a really good survival/world building game. Survival/building game and a unique setting. So, have any of you played a game that you knew would trigger a phobia, and how did that work out? I might see whether we can save that specific question for when the others are around, simply because I have a couple of phobias. Well, they tend to revolve around injections, and so when that happens in a game, I am out. I will never play the rest of it. So it's, things like BioShock or whatever. No, never. All the best, Jonathan. So thank you for the intro, Jonathan. And I am going to get out of this menu screen so that we can start bumbling around. Okay. So the first thing to note is probably that I have set up a base. My base is located really near a thermal vent, and part of that is because this isn't actually my first time playing Subnautica. I spent a whole bunch of time, as regular listeners will know, in early access. I think it must have been a couple of years ago now. Goodness. And what happened there was I decided to build a base with all of these different planter beds outside the windows and put loads of deep sea flora in there, and just essentially set up a little pleasant holiday home under the sea with a nice garden. And I've actually gravitated towards doing something very similar here, but a lot of the elements that I can incorporate now actually have more functionality. So there's an element of cultivating some resources, and also there are more decorative options. For example, upstairs in one of my pods, I'll try and do an audio walkthrough of the area. So starting from the hatch that you come into, you go into a little circular room, and either side there is a medkit fabricator, so that I can always heal up after a particularly harrowing journey. Next to those, on the right, I have 2 lockers for storage. On the left, I have a fabricator for making things. This is the more sort of small scale stuff, so food related or crafting your basic resources into the next step up. So if I open that up, it's things like you can pick up metal salvage bits from wreckage outside and then convert those into titanium, which is a core basic resource. I can also pick up creepvine, which is the game's version of those giant kelps that you see at things like Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is where they had the launch party for obvious reasons. You also can use salt deposits and coral tube samples, combine those to make bleach, which you then use to disinfect water early on, and that is one of the ways of getting a more efficient water resource cycle, I guess, going. What else? You can make electronics like batteries, computer chips, copper wire, things like that. And you can also craft bits and pieces for yourself, so things like a rebreather or different types of suit for your little diver. Okay, so continuing round the room, on the left, past the fabricator and past another storage locker, you get to a living wall of leaves, which was just a nice decorative touch, I think. I don't think it does anything in terms of the, air quality or anything. And I also have a grow bed that is for terrestrial plants rather than submersed plants. So that's things like, I've got a melon that I actually should eat because I am running low on my food meter. So let's see. What I'm going to do is I am going to use my knife to slash one of the melons, because what that does is it generates seeds. And you get more seeds than just the one melon, if you see what I mean. So if you pick a melon, you get one whole melon, and if you stab it with a knife, you get 4 melon seeds. So, it's things like that, being aware of that particular crafting loop.
Vital signs stabilizing.
There you go. That's me going from starving to having slightly less than starving on my food meter. So let me just take care of that stuff. Gonna eat some more things. Okay. Right. And then moving past that, I've got a more ornamental plant pot thing, and a little glass table with some science kit on the top. I don't want to include a spoiler there. And next to the storage lockers on the right, there's another table, another bit of lab equipment, and one of the walls is a window that looks out onto my fledgling garden this time around. So I can see different kelp. I can see there's a plant that looks like a red circular basket with a core of almost like a pearl, but obviously organic inside. There are mushrooms, some of which I can use for making batteries if you combine them with copper. That's it. So yeah, and I also prioritized the ones that will glow in the dark so that I could just see a different type of landscape as I look out of the window. Oh, and I made a coffee machine. Okay, cool. So then you go forwards down a corridor. You go into another, the room is blank at the moment. I did actually put something in this earlier, but then I decided that I'm going to probably do something else with this particular room. So I've just left it almost entirely blank, but with a window that looks out onto the garden, sort of. So the garden is basically an inner courtyard, and this is the second of the 4 corners that would look into it. Then we go right down another corridor into another blank room, although I have put glass windows in every single free wall that isn't a corridor opening. And on one side you can actually see the thermal vent erupting. That's what you can hear, hopefully. This kind of pulsing roar in the background. Excellent. Okay, so And obviously this is the third of the windows that looks out onto the courtyard. Okay, right. So you can go right again down a glass corridor. So on your right you can see the courtyard again. And if you follow that to the end, I actually built a glass observatory, which is essentially just a glass ball where you can look out, and so I can sort of see. I've built it so that it goes out slightly further than the what's it called? You know, the foundation plates that support the structure, just so that it feels really like you're, you know, in a glass bubble looking out over the ocean. And I've put a little decorative tree in there. Okay, let's go back to that room that looked out over the thermal vent. And so if instead of going right down to the observatory, you go straight ahead, this room I have built a water filtration machine. And so this one is... Ooh, that's nearly ready. Excellent. So that's on that sort of ground floor level. There's a ladder, so you can actually go up one floor, where I have started to build what would essentially be sleeping quarters. You don't need to sleep in the game, or at least I wonder if there's an extra difficulty setting where you might, but basically this is I'm playing on the one where you worry about food, water, health, oxygen, you know, stuff like that. And there's a kind of more casual or lower stress one where you can get rid of the food and drink reliance thing. Anyway, so that was the sound of water being ready, I believe. Yeah, cool. Right. Now, building that machine took a lot more in the way of resources, and I believe they would have been the ones that were harder to find. I'm just going to bring up the recipe and see, or the blueprint rather, and see what it would have been. Okay, yes. So for this, you need 3 titanium, some copper wire, and a thing called aerogel, which is fascinating in real life anyway, but it's a thing you have to figure out how to synthesize in this. And also you need the water filtration machine blueprint, I think, which you get those by going out and picking things up and scanning them with your scanner and, you know, learning more about your environment. So, yeah. Okay. So, in the water filtration room, you can go right down a corridor that runs parallel to the one that goes to the observatory. And this is a 3-story block going downwards, sort of dropping away from the main floor of my base. And I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with this section yet either. I think I'm going to use it for a bit more resource cultivation, but I don't want to go further into that in case it's spoiler territory for people that want to tinker around in things for themselves. And I also have a module slightly divorced from this complex, where my tiny little submersible, the sea moth, is docked. at the moment. So I'm just going to exit the base through the hatch. Actually, I'm going to get some food first and clear a bit of space in my inventory if possible. What can I downsize on? This is the part where it would have probably been good if I had prepared a little bit more for this by, you know, having things set up so I could just leave. But anyway, actually, do you know what? I'm going to use one of my tools. So the knife was one of them. The scanner, which I've mentioned, is another. And then there is also stuff like flashlights and other more powerful cutting and repairing devices. And there's a thing called a habitat builder, which is the tool that you use to do the majority of your base building. So you'll equip it using one of the hotkeys or by scrolling a mouse wheel, and then what you do is you just right click and it brings up the construction menu, so you can look through things like base pieces, exterior modules, which is stuff like the solar panels that you use to power this stuff. There's also the interior stuff, so that's like the ladders between the floors, the water filtration, and so on. Interior modules, which covers the grow bed and a little aquarium and the medkit fabricator and the lockers and things, and then MISC, which is, you know, like the little table and the bed and stuff like that. So what I am going to do is I'm going to make I'm going to make myself another little grow bed thing just so that I can get rid of the excess of these seeds. Cool. Then you click to use the planter and you deposit some bits in there. Hooray! I might also build another storage locker because that will be useful. Although, so I can start building it, but I need one extra bit of quartz. Aha! I have one of those in my other locker. Hooray! There we go. And transfer all of the things into that I do not immediately need for survival on this particular trip. So I'm going to make sure that I have enough water, and because I upgraded my knife, it is now a kind of thermo knife thing that glows at, you know, a sort of high temperature. And what it means is that when I equip it and stab, it's so sad, stab a fish as it like swims past minding its own business, then it instantly cooks it and I can eat it without having to go back and use the fabricator. So hang on a second, I really think I'm going to sneeze and I have no idea whether my my microphone setup will absolutely freak out on that front, so okay, that's me trying to stab, oh I feel bad, stab a hoverfish, and then I pick up the cooked hoverfish and I eat it. Nom 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 nom. Okay. So right now I'm swimming through, oh, you can probably hear that. I'm swimming through a kelp forest area biome, and these things that you can hear you know, screaming, are like long, almost eel-like fish, but sort of a cross between an eel and a crocodile. They're called stalkers, and I really like them, even though they make these terrifying noises, because they seem to really enjoy playing with the bits of salvage, and I just think that's really lovely. They just seem to be having a nice time. Right, so I don't know if you will have heard the sound that just played, but yeah, cool. So that was alerting me that I had 30 seconds of oxygen remaining in my tank. I actually have a spare tank that I've just swapped in, so that's good. But obviously you have to remember to replenish those either by switching them in and out of the active slot when you are above the surface or somewhere with breathable air, or wait, no, that's the only way that you do it. And so essentially, like, I've been in the situation where I have decided that I was going to go down into a cave system, and I thought I would use one oxygen tank's worth to get, you know, as far as possible, and then the other one to get back. And then I got to the end of the first one, swapped the full one in, and found that I hadn't remembered to replenish that one, and suffocated/drowned. And it was entirely my own fault. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do now that I've had a bit of a snack is I'm going to get into my little sea moth, and I'm going to go and try and find some lithium deposits and some lead deposits. So it's fully repaired and seems to be fully powered. Good. Okay, cool. Right. Where shall we go? I'm going to go northwest. Okay, so I think I could have timed that better, because I spent the entirety of daylight showing you around a base that you cannot see, and now I'm heading out into the dark, so that's fine. This is the sea moth that you can hear. It's like a little, almost like the scooter of submersibles. And what I'm doing is just sort of using its headlamps to comb across the seafloor and just see what resources I might be passing. They are bound to particular, biomes and particular rock formations and things like that. So, it's not a trial and error type thing. For example, this is a sandstone outcrop that I'm about to break to see what's inside. And that was a little gold deposit, so cool. Okay. Ooh, no, I've got that. The annoying thing about the sea moth is that I have a tendency to forget to keep an eye on the maximum depth it can go before it starts getting crushed, which is 200 meters, and it lets you know that it's really unhappy with you when you get to 200 meters and then some. So it's, yeah. But obviously if you don't immediately start ascending, it decides that it will explode. So obviously you might want to pay attention to that. Oh, okay. Yes. So the noises that you can hear are from fish that are significantly less friendly than the stalker fish that I was talking about earlier. So these ones I don't want to sneak up on me. The stalkers just sort of largely play and leave me alone, whereas these ones will just eat my head. Cool. Right. I can go deeper than the submersible, but it then has an effect on, the rate at which you consume oxygen, stuff like that. I think. Okay, cool. Yes. I have found some resource deposits, but it is not the one that I wanted. Okay, right. Boop, doop, boop. Ah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm quite far... I'm quite far down, and the problem here is... Oh, no. The problem here is that it's actually relatively easy to get turned around, and so you end up in this situation where you're, running out of oxygen and you've forgotten the way back to the surface, or, you suddenly realize that in trying to avoid being eaten, you have perhaps lost track of the thing that you were doing, or you've, gone in completely the wrong direction, and now it will just take far too long to get back to where you were. So I've done a loop and found a couple of the things that I wanted. Not as many as I wanted to. So I'm just going to go back to the sea moth and regroup. Maybe definitely fill my oxygen tanks again. So it's really lovely in terms of screenshotable material. So I think, I have an entire folder full of screenshots on my PC for this game. But yeah, so you've got an HUD most of the time, which will track things that you've put down in terms of like beacons and just sort of in terms of your main resources and stuff. Like you can always see the sea moth when that's active, but just rammed into a thing because I was trying to talk and pilot out of a really tight cave. Anyway, yes, so you can I've completely forgotten the point that I was making. Oh yes, if you press F6 you can cycle through a few different HUD options, including removing pretty much all of it. So that's a good one to keep in mind for if you are a fan of screenshotting. Okay. So yeah, the thing that I'm doing at the moment is there is a story that runs through the game. You actually spawn in having crashed in this ocean on this alien planet, and obviously you're trying to survive, but then, you know, that was me just getting rammed by a fish. So, oh, that was a shark. That sort of snarling noise. So, yeah, it's, so it starts to open up from there. You learn how to do basic survival, but then it starts to become about, you know, you've got a mixture of self-directed tasks. So obviously that would be things like my, yay, lead, thank you. You've got a mixture of things like my project for finding, oh, that's so pretty. I want to screenshot that. Sorry. Cool. Right. Sorry, this is really difficult because to try and minimize the noise that my my mechanical keyboard makes on audio camera, it actually is better if I record with a towel over both my hands, so because it also picks up my mouse clicking and things really badly, so I actually cannot see what I'm pressing in terms of, you know, if I need to find the screenshot key, which is one that I don't use often you know, in relation to being able to do it with my with my hands covered. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, so there are things like the wreckage bits that you can investigate. You can investigate the flora and fauna that actually populate the world, and then you start digging into the story. I would say it is entirely possible to play for 70 in my case hours in that sort of super early access period without having any real concept of the story and not pursuing it, even if bits of it were there. I was just happy building my base and experiencing the world and putting down little markers so I could go and investigate things that had been interesting as I went past. So, you know, that is a big part of it. But this time around, because, you know, review, but also because it's now in there in its complete form, I'm following the story, and that gives you some more pointed or directed kinds of quests to fulfill. Right. Okay.
Welcome aboard, Captain.
So I'm now in a more expansive area. It's a kind of sand dunes place with lots of this kind of red kelp grass all over the ocean floor. So yeah, it's this kind of like slightly scrubby grassland with lots of red all over it, and then you can kind of hear like the mooing of these kinds of space cows, I guess, or space sea cows, which are just these amazing beasties that you should definitely, if you have any desire to play the game, you should discover those yourself. I really don't want to ruin this for anybody. I'm just assuming that with, you know, everything that I've said so far, people who would be worried that it's a spoiler will have stopped listening long ago. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm Where is all of the lead? Why? Okay, right, let's go over here. So, something else that I thought might come in useful for people is if any of the sound effects that you're hearing right now might freak you out. They don't me. I actually find them really soothing. Then, you know, obviously that's another sign that your comfort level with underneath the sea might be very different to mine. So yeah, maybe this'll help if some people are just not sure if the game is for them. I am not immune to being freaked out by the game, but it's more in the jump scare sort of area of fear, because there are some things in the game that I just wasn't expecting to appear right behind me at points, or which came up behind me when I was really low on health. So the sudden sound of, oh, okay, that's an X, Y, Z, then suddenly makes you fear for your life because you are fearing for your life. Death actually just puts you, back into your habitat with the stuff that you most recently saved in your inventory, I believe. So obviously you'd lose a few things, but not absolutely everything. So I like that as an approach. I've never been one for... Oh. Okay, that's the sound that it makes when you...
UPDA data.
Yeah, when you find a new sort of data point that gets added to your info bank. I'm currently actually inside a wreckage having a look at various rooms within that, just so that I could see whether anything has been left that I could make use of, or, the sort of general salvage mentality. So, I think... Right. Yes. Oh, I do have a a flashlight. That would be useful, wouldn't it? Oh, brilliant. And there's a bottle of water in a crate, so that could not have come at a better time. Cool. Oh, yeah, I want to scan this thing that I have found on the floor. Okay.
New blueprint acquired.
There we go. Right. So that was the sound of me having scanned enough fragments of a thing that I can now build it through my various, fabricator libraries and things like that. So, but I have done that thing of getting a bit turned around while exploring, and so I need to... Okay, I hope that I... Cool. Okay. So yeah, that was just me trying to work out what it was that I was trying to scan, and because if you scan things that you already have the bits for, you actually get titanium resources instead, which can be super useful, or it can just sort of clog up your inventory, which, you know, so you need to be a bit careful on that front. Right, now I would really like to stop being just in all of these tunnels. Wouldn't that be lovely? Okay. Right. What else? I think that's outside, so I'm not gonna panic. I'm not gonna look around. Yeah, that's outside. Does not sound like it, but
Integrating new PDA data.
Okay. No, I've already got that. Okay, so I think I'm actually at the very bottom of this structure, and so I need to start getting out. Okay, that's useful at least. I'm sort of got my bearings. Okay, so that was the data
30 seconds.
terminal, and then I go over here, and then I pick this thing up through here. Shit. Okay, this is probably the part where I am going to run out of oxygen, because I have done the exact thing that I said don't do. Right, yeah. Oh well. So, okay, so I can show you what happens, or tell you what happens. So I've spawned in that base that I told you about at the very beginning, with everything that I had in my inventory before I headed out. And I think, yeah, the sea moth is actually out where I left it, so where I parked it to go exploring, the little fragment of wreckage. And so hopefully if I swim all the way back to that, and if I do not get lost inside the wreckage, I should be able to pick up the resources that I'd gathered. I think they drop when you die. Can't guarantee that though, but it's worth a go. Anyway, but yeah, so I guess maybe my death is a good point at which to end this slightly strange podcast. I don't know whether it was a success. Definitely you have had a chunk of time where somebody has talked about a game that they are playing, and you hopefully have a sense of that game and what you can do within it without having too many spoilers thrown your way. I'm still 400 meters away from the sea moth, so I've just gone above the surface of the water. That's what that splashing was, so that I can switch out my air tanks and replenish both of them fully. Anyway, I guess thanks for listening, everybody. Oh wait, No! Oh! I knew I'd do this wrong. I was too busy concentrating on my resource situation. Okay, so let's do this properly. If you would like to keep up with our various other side projects, we post them all on crateandcrowbar.com. We have a Patreon if you would like to donate to help support those projects, which is, I believe, patreon.com/crateandcrowbar. We also have a Discord channel where lots of lovely community people chat about all manner of things, not just video games. You can find the link to that on our website. On Twitter, we are at Crate and Crowbar. You can message us there. If you have questions, I believe normal service will resume next week, so you should just email whatever questions you have to questions at crateandcrowbar.com. What else? We're on YouTube. That's Crate and Crowbar as well. And I guess finally, if you would like to follow me, who even knows at this point? It's at Philippa War on Twitter, which is PHILIPPAWARR. And just because people like us to mention the name of the game a second time in case they missed it the first time, the thing that I have been playing this whole time is Subnautica by Unknown Worlds. Okay. Awesome. I think that's actually everything now. So thanks for listening, everybody.